Good evening, everybody. Hello and welcome to Cirencester College. My name is Liam Nolan, and I'm the head of faculty for Science, Technology, Engineering, Arts and Maths. That's a very long name, so we've shortened it to STEAM, which is quite handy, isn't it? In this question and answer session, we'll be answering your questions on a few different subjects at college. They are A-level physics, A-level electronics, and A-level computing. So we have a few lecturers here to answer your questions. So if you have anything you'd like to ask, please type your questions into the box below and we'll endeavour to answer as many as we can in the next 20 minutes. So to begin the session, I'd just like to introduce the lecturers who are here and ask them to say just a little bit, in fact, just really tell us what they teach, and then we'll come to your questions in a second. So can we start with Hazel, please?
Hello, my name's Hazel Bridges and I teach A-level physics.
Fantastic, thank you, Hazel. And Nick?
Hi, my name is Nick Roma and I teach A-level electronics.
And Kate?
Hi, I'm Kate Blackie and I teach A-level computer science.
Superb. Thank you very much, everybody. So everybody who's interested in any of those A-levels, then please do type your questions if you want to know anything about those subjects, and we'll answer them as well as we can. Of course, you'll also be aware that on our website, all of our lecturers, all of our course team leaders have recorded videos about their subjects. They're 20-minute clips which show you, which allow them to explain what their subject is about. And in many instances of taking on a virtual tour of the laboratories and the computer suites and the facilities that we have here at college. So just to get the ball rolling, maybe I'll start with Hazel and ask her to tell us a little bit about, if I'm a student and I'm thinking of doing A-level physics, what would make me think, yes, that's a good thing for me to do? Well, what do you do in A-level physics and why is it so interesting for you?
Well, physics is about explaining the world around us and even beyond the world, so the universe. And it's, well, who isn't interested in that, frankly? So we use a lot of maths to help us answer those questions so that we can predict what's going to happen in the future. So the types of students who like doing physics are mathematical students. So they have, they like problem solving, they like using their mathematical skills in order to solve problems. They're interested in finding out more, and that sort of researching and doing more reading around the subject is a very common trait that's utilised in A-level. Yeah, so it's an all-round subject. It goes very well with maths. And if you're thinking about going into an engineering direction, it's a good combination. If you're thinking about going into a technical science, then it's also a good A-level as well. And it also complemented by the other A-levels that we have on this discussion tonight.
Thank you very much, Hazel. Talking of which, let's ask a similar question of Nick and ask him about A-level electronics and what his students find so interesting about that course.
Okay, well, A-level electronics it's an applied science, it's an applied version of a particular area of physics. So it's like by understanding how all the technology that you use at home works, all your mobile communication, all the IT technology. It's about how all those different things work. So it's for the kind of person that's a bit likes that like bit of academic, bit of maths, but also likes to get sort of a bit more hands-on, to create circuits, create systems, and generally sort of have fun with sort of technology, really. And as Hazel said, it goes very, very well with the physics and the computing, but also very well with maths and engineering as well.
And we will be talking about engineering in our next session. So if you're interested in engineering combined with electronics, then come back in 20 minutes, half an hour, and we're talking about engineering. But let's move on to A-level computing. And Kate teaches A-level computing. Tell us a little bit about that course, Kate.
Well, I suppose it kind of complements the other two. It's bit of quite a lot of maths in it. It's for problem solvers. So if you enjoy problem solving, then computing is definitely for you. And if you enjoy writing programs, solving problems, logic, all those kind of things, works really well with electronics and physics and maths, the same as the other subjects, I suppose, really.
Brilliant. Thank you very much. Of course, you've got the three lectures in front of you now, and then many students do those subjects put together. But any one of those subjects Physics it goes really well with maths, and I think students who do physics and maths together, there's a lot of synergy there. But most subjects at college, you can mix and match a lot. So there's a lot of students, for example, who do chemistry with physics. And they're moving in maybe a different direction to the students who are choosing to do physics with maths and electronics and going to the engineering side of things. So and we're here to answer questions really, as well as the subjects. We're happy to talk about what career advice you might be interested in. Now here's a question that's come in from the big wide world, Hazel, and it's particularly to do with physics. Yeah. And it's about the step up between GCSE and A level. So can you tell us a little bit about how students might be able to deal with that, or how we support them with that step up?
Yes, I mean, it is a thing going from GCSE to A level, but there'll be a lot of topics that you'll be familiar with. So when we come round to them again, you'll have already got a fairly good base understanding of the topic that we're dealing with. And we're just stretching and extending that understanding that you have. So it's about skills of language, about how you communicate that understanding, and it's about doing more complex calculations about that. And science is based, or a lot of modelling is based on assumptions. And as you go further through a subject, the nuances of those assumptions become much finer. So you get to add layers of explanation and understanding onto it. Now, in terms of helping you support that process, well, there's lots of textbooks around, but one of the main resources are lecturers and your colleagues, your peers. So we run support sessions every week, 2 support sessions every week. And if you can find a buddy to work with collaboratively when you're in lessons or outside the lessons, that's very helpful too. But you are going to have to be ready for a challenge. You know, we help you with techniques about how to revise and how to work and how to learn.
Thank you very much, Hazel. I think, all subjects, you find a big step up between GCSE and A level. And one of the big differences, of course, in coming to college from school is that you have some time which is free time in inverted commas, which you have to learn to manage yourself. You know, you're not in lessons all the time. You'll have whether you take A-level physics or electronics or computing, for any one of those subjects, you'll have 3 lessons per week, and they're an hour and a half each. So if you put together 3 subjects, that's 9 lessons in a week. So you can imagine that you've got some free time on your timetable. And one of the big skills that you learn very early on in college life is how to manage that time and how to make sure you're using your time efficiently and effectively. And I actually think that, of course, there are subject challenges in terms of understanding the physics or the computing or the electronics, but it's also about understanding how you manage yourself and being able to meet deadlines and don't waste time and make sure you're doing all your homework on time. And we'll support you in that. You know, we'll set lots of homework and have lots of deadlines for you to meet, and we'll have regular tests. But actually adapting to that environment is one of the biggest skills that you'll find you need to get used to. Let's ask Nick a question about electronics. Nick, can you describe a typical lesson for a student in electronics? You said it might have a bit more practicality about it than some subjects.
Yes. Often in electronics, we'll look at a particular sort of system or section of a system, and then by doing that, by the sort of process we learn about that, you look at the basic parts of it, and then we'll look at assembling it together, the theory behind it. Then we will simulate it actually on a piece of software that we use in the college to actually understand its behaviour and what we expect to happen. And then we would actually go ahead and sort of construct that on a prototyping board. So you actually have a chance to make the system and then test it against the simulation, and then follow that kind of process, which is actually very similar to sort of how if you were working in the electronics industry, the simulation, the design, the testing is reflected in there. So I really like my students to really enjoy their practical work, because I also do too. And it's one of the things that sort of sets electronics out from other subjects, really.
Fantastic. Thank you very much. Kate, we've got a question that's come in from out there. It's about the computing languages that students would need to be familiar with when they're doing the course in A-level computing.
The main subject or the main language that we use is C#. It's a nice, strict, formal language, works really well with what we need to do with it. And as well as that, you'll also learn how to program in assembler and in SQL, and which is the one for databases, and then the functional language called Haskell, which is used to work with really big data. So it's a very mathematical language, uses lots of functions, really interesting.
And do you find that programming is one of the tougher parts of the course for students to get their head around?
Yes, but we do an awful lot of practice. So it's a bit about perseverance and accepting that sometimes you're going to fail, that your programs don't always work, which is something they need to get used to.
Thank you very much. Hazel, can you tell us, so I'm moving on now to think about how we make sure students are doing well in our subjects and how they get feedback about the progress they're making. So I presume that you every now and again, you slide a test in front of a student to find out how they're getting on.
Yes, we do, Liam. You're absolutely right. So we have chapters that we work through, and we have a test at the end of each chapter. And we would expect to see students making progress through those, but also there are learning points from having some assessment. But in order to prepare yourself for that assessment, we're going to have some other homeworks. We're going to get you used to the types of questions and the types of skills that you're going to need to demonstrate and the techniques of answering an exam question. So there is regular work set through the course. Some of those homework activities will involve the answers will be available for you to look at. So it's a way for the student to have a go at the question, see if they can they can understand it and solve it successfully. But then they can go and look at the answer in the way that we're expecting it to be laid out, and then they can learn from that process, have a go at it again, and so they're hopefully ready for when it comes to the exam. So yes, there is regular assessment, but there's also lots of support and little mini steps to help you through that process.
Superb, thank you very much. And I'm guessing in physics we end up doing, at the end of 2 years, we end up doing two papers.
It's a 3-paper, 6-hour extravaganza. So it's quite a thing. So this is why being organised and all those skills, those sort of softer skills, are so important. So you can, you've got an awful lot of work to learn and to be able to utilise in those exams. So yes, getting into good habits right from the very beginning, using those times when you're not on timetable so effectively is a really good skill that you need to get into.
Thank you. And Nick, is there any practical assessment on your course? It's a very practical subject. Is it? So you've got exams at the end, like in physics, but how do we assess the practical nature of the course?
Well, we've got a practical unit, the third unit, which is 20% of your final mark is taken up with that section there, based over 2 tasks. So you've got one task which is a bit smaller we do in the first year, which is sort of based around integrating a microprocessor, a little bit of programming, in fact, assembler, linking back in with what Kate was talking about a minute ago, with sort of building a circuit around it. So you're designing a little system. Then the second year we make a much bigger system, right? To say, right, I want you to come up with an idea of something you can make, and you can research it, develop the idea, again go through that simulation and that construction process down to the testing, and then obviously you've got a finished product at the end there, which the students do tend to enjoy, particularly when you've got a bit of creative control over what you're going to make. I think they tend to enjoy it. Superb,
thank you very much. Hazel would like to add to that.
Yes, sorry, I was just thinking about this 6-hour extravaganza exam. It's covered over 3 exams, so
that's right.
It's not 6 hours full. Go for it, just so in case everybody's worried.
Yeah, thanks for that, Hazel. Kate, we've got a question now about the courses that we offer in the computing side of the faculty. So it's really, can you tell us a little bit about how ICT is different to computing, but also if you're able to comment on the new digital course as well. Someone's asked about how are they different to each other. I'm happy to say something as well, but if you want to start by saying what your perception of that is.
So A-level computing there's quite a lot of programming in it. It's 1 A-level, so it's about 60% programming and about 40% sort of theory and things like that. But it's just 1 A-level. The BTEC IT is kind of a mix of a number of different units. It covers things like web design and games design, as well as doing the sort of fundamentals of understanding about how computers work. It also covers things like databases and spreadsheets and things like that. And that we do as a 2 A-level equivalent or a 3 A-level equivalent. So it's bigger than the computer science A-level. And then the T-level is sort of 3 plus A-levels and is mainly programming. It's pretty much all programming. So it just looks at how you create problems, how you create programs, sort of following the system development life cycle from sort of idea all the way through to sort of having it in place and reviewing it and maintaining it.
Yeah, so thank you very much, Kate. So the big distinction, of course, is that the nature of those courses. Computer science is an A-level, ICT is a vocational BTEC, which is, the IT is a vocational BTEC, which is either the equivalent of 2 A-levels or 3 A-levels. And then the new digital T-level is that's all you would do at college. That's a program in and of itself. And there's a huge, a big part of that is work experience. So there's you would go and do blocks of work experience in industry, and then there's theory exams as part of the T level, as well as project work. So it's a very varied course. And I would encourage, if anyone's interested in the T level or in the BTEC in IT, our next session at 6:30, we'll have people talking about those two courses. So Kate mainly teaches A-level computing. But you do a little bit of work on the BTEC as well, don't you?
Yeah, I teach a bit of BTEC as well.
Yeah. So just to be clear for everybody, A-level physics or A-level electronics or A-level computing, that's one subject which you would do as a package of normally 3 A-levels in total. Whereas the IT 2 A-level course, you would do and choose maybe one other A-level to go with it, or one other BTEC, or the 3 A-level equivalent BTEC. Or the digital T level, which is a brand new course. And if you're really interested in that, please do come and ask us more questions about it, because we're up and running with that, and it's a very exciting new area of what we're delivering. Right, so I'm waiting for another question to come through, but in the meantime, we'll head over to Hazel and ask you about you do some practical work as well, don't you?
Yes.
But that's not assessed as such in the final examination.
No, so we have something called the practical endorsement, which is a series of 12 experiments that need to be conducted by students over the course of the 2 years. And you create a lab book recording and learning the skills of how to do experiments, how to design them, how to use equipment, how to record and analyze that data. The experiments always relate to the theory that we're learning. So it's a practical application of or generation of the data that leads to the equations that we know and love. Now, we have an element of every one of our 3 exams that relates back to those experiments. So whilst the practical endorsement is a pass-fail, so have you done all of the experiments, yes, no, you will be tested on your understanding of those experiments in each of the exams. So that is where so there's no coursework like in electronics, but it is examined with data analysis and description of it.
Fantastic. Thank you very much. Now, folks, we've only got a minute left before the end of this session. So if you've got any other questions, please do type them up as quick as you can, and we'll get back to you. But maybe in the meantime, I'll just go to Nick for one final 30-second ending comment, Nick. So just tell us a little bit about how, if I'm a student here, how do I make sure I'm doing as well as possible? What information am I acting on from you as my lecturer? And what can I do to make sure that I'm making really, really good progress?
Okay, so obviously you've got a monitoring aspect to the progress. So that'll be things like, as Hazel's does, like tests at the end of each topic, and each topic as well. I have like a sort of an assignment which guides us through a topic with practical activities and simulations and questions, and that's sort of also taken as part of as a sort of another metric, if you like, in terms of how well you're doing. So you've got there's plenty sort of in terms of quantitative data in terms of how well you are doing, but also general feedback from yourself.
Thank you, Nick. Just before we leave, because we are bang on time, but someone just asked a question, which is for us all to answer. And maybe Kate, this student has said, how large are the classes for a subject? Well, she said such as physics, but they're similar in computing. So how big are our classes, Kate?
Well, my class is at the moment 20. students.
And that's about typical, isn't it?
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah.
So
and there's an add-on to this question in terms of are students addressed if they are struggling? What would a student who's finding it hard experience in your classroom, Kate, and how would you go about supporting them?
We can usually tell from sort of the work that they've done how well they're getting on the assessments and things like that. But there are sort of extra workbooks that they can help with, regular meetings, support sessions, catch-up sessions, all sorts of things like that help you get help when you need it. Being able to ask the lecturer. There are online videos that you can look at and that will help explain things that we've done in the classes, as well as sort of instructions and worksheets and all sorts of things that will help you understand what you're trying to learn. Fantastic,
thank you very much. I think it's something that is we do a lot of at Cirencester College. Is we really, and Nick's answer was going along these lines as well. Really keep track of how students are getting on, and if anyone's not doing as well as they could be doing, or they're a bit worried about things, we will provide a huge amount of support and help. Of course, the big thing goes back to what we said at the beginning, which is it's students need to learn to access that help as quickly as possible and to talk to us. And if they do, then they certainly won't go unsupported, and lecturers work very, very hard to support the students. So we're going to call it a day there, folks. That's it for physics, electronics and computing. Thank you very much to the lecturers for being here and available to answer questions. And if you've got any further questions, we're all here and contactable through the college by email or give us a call. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Liam.
Yes.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Bye. Good evening, everybody, and welcome to Cirencester College. My name is Liam Nolan, and I'm the head of faculty for STEAM. That's Science, Technology, Engineering, Arts and Maths. In this question and answer session, we're answering your questions on the new T-level in construction, the BTEC vocational course in IT, and the BTEC vocational course in engineering. And I have some colleagues here to chat to you about those subjects tonight. So if you have any questions, then please feel free to type them into the box below. And then we'll try and answer as many of them as possible in the next 20 minutes. Just to begin the session, I'd like to introduce you to the members of staff who are here to talk to you tonight. So if we start on with Chris. Chris, just tell us your name and what you're going to be teaching here at Cirencester College.
Yeah, hi. Good evening. I'm Chris Lithgow. I'm going to be teaching from September the new T-level. One of the new T-levels, and I'm taking the construction T-level. So that's what I'm doing. Fantastic. Thank you very much. And then Simon, tell us about you.
Good evening, everybody. I'm Simon Jones. I'm course leader for the BTEC IT course, but I also hopefully be able to answer more questions about the digital T-level if they come up as well.
Yeah, so the T-levels are brand new at college, and there's 3 of them starting in college, and we'll talk a bit more about those in a moment. But Simon mentioned there's a T-level in digital as well as the T-level in construction that Chris mentioned. And Peter, tell us about your subject.
Good evening. My name is Peter Manjit, and I'm the course leader for engineering, level 3 engineering. So if you have any questions regarding the level 3 engineering, feel free to ask.
Fantastic. Thank you very much. So those are the subjects we're here to discuss in the next 20 minutes, folks. If you've got any questions either for the T-level in construction, the T-level in digital, the vocational courses in ICT or engineering, then please do drop us a line and we'll do our best to answer your questions. Let's start by thinking about these digital, the T-levels. Which are construction and digital. They're brand new courses in the country. There's very few colleges offering these courses starting in September. And Cirencester College is privileged to be one of those colleges that's offering the T-levels. Chris, you're brand new to college and you're going to teach us about the construction. Can you tell us a little bit about the course? What's so interesting about this course in construction?
Yeah, by all means. The construction T level is one of 3 that are being rolled out this year, and it's really exciting to be part of this. It's a new thing for me. Obviously, I've not taught it before because it's brand new. It's so new I haven't even got a banner behind me for it yet. So perhaps next year I'll have one of those. Yeah, I'm really quite excited because it's just so new. It's been designed by employers very much with them in mind. So construction professionals, they've had a lot of input into the course, which means that we're pretty confident that it's going to be something that employers are going to look at. Somebody coming out of these T levels in 2 years' time and thinking, wow, you know, they really know their stuff. They've had loads of work experience. And there'll be a really good professional straight away in an architect's office or a construction site or a planning office, wherever they may end up. So it's yeah, really quite an exciting flagship course that we're launching here.
Yeah, there's quite a few comments coming in and questions about the T level. So it is a mix, isn't it, of academic work and project work and placements in industry. So this is quite a different approach to. It's a bit like vocational courses with a bit of theory like A levels thrown together.
Yeah, I mean, in the past, we've had all sorts of different ways of approaching getting into these sort of industries. And really, to be honest, they've never been particularly brilliant. But this to me, and all of us here, we think this is going to be really good. I think the employer involvement is particularly good. We're already making loads of contacts with local construction companies, planning offices, surveyors, that type of thing. And we're going to have loads of visits to sites, to professional offices. I see it as a really hands-on course. It's really not going to be very much sitting down in the classroom, you know, writing notes. That'll be the least of it. There'll be lots of visits, as I say. We'll be around the college grounds, surveying buildings around the grounds. We'll be in all weathers, out and about. Yeah, it's a really interesting course. Yeah.
Thanks very much, Chris. And if you do this course at college, then that would be the thing you do. You don't combine it with anything else. It's not like taking an A level or a BTEC in engineering, which you would combine with other subjects. This would be the thing that you do. Whereas let's move over and think about some of those other subjects. So Simon, you know a bit about the digital T level as well. So we're happy, folks, if you've got questions about the digital T level for you to float those. But you can also at college take a BTEC vocational course in IT, and there's different sizes of that you can opt to take.
Yeah. Oh, that's right. I mean, the BTEC you can take as an extended diploma, which is worth 3 A levels, or you can do the diploma, which is worth 2 A levels. So you've got the larger and the smaller program. The T level is very much just what you'll be doing for a T level. It's a full-time program. And as I said, there's a work experience placement in there as well, a 45-day placement, which gives you hands-on experience working with software developers and coders and getting experience on how to code. So I suppose really if you're interested in coding and you want to focus mainly on coding, probably the T-level digital is the way to go. If you're looking for a more broad picture of IT skills, then the BTEC might be for you.
Thank you very much, Simon. And we've had one particular question about a program that a student is interested in doing. This student is interested in doing engineering, but combined with environmental science, and wants to know when will they find out if that's possible. So I'm almost certain it is possible, but I think for a particular question like that, I would need to consult our timetable. So if you can, whoever's written that question, I think we'll keep it. Can we keep a track of that, Nick? And I'll get back to that student with an answer to that question. Right. Okay. So I think emailing that question in, because I will be able to answer that question, but I need to go back to a document. So if you can ask that question about studying engineering and environmental science, I'm almost certain it's definitely possible. And we'll be asking you to come to a college appointment at some point in the near future to discuss that very question. We've got another question here about Peter. I'll ask you in a minute about engineering, but there's a question that's popped up again about T-level construction. It says, if after 2 years, I get my T-level in construction qualification, is it possible to still find work that within construction that is practically minded in one of the trades like carpentry or building? So would this be an appropriate progression route for a practical hands-on job like that, Chris?
I mean, in theory, you could. I think if I had an ambition to be a carpenter and joiner, perhaps as I was myself years ago, or a bricklayer or plasterer or something like that, I think possibly there might be better routes to follow. If I'm honest, I think the T-level in construction is really not geared towards the practical trades so much. It's much more about the sort of surveying, the design, the management, that side of construction. So if you did it, I mean, yes, of course, you could do this course and get a really good foundation in how the whole industry works, but it wouldn't really be what I would call a preparation for a practical trades course. So I think it's possibly the wrong way around. The other way around, I think, could work quite well, but then you'd run out of time, obviously, because you've only got 2 years to get these T-levels done in theory. So that would be my answer. Probably would follow a different route if you were definitely thinking, yes, I want to be a practical tradesperson.
So it's not necessarily about the trade; it's about the other side, the planning and design part of and the surveying part of that construction process.
Yeah.
Thanks very much for that, Chris. Now we need to say a little bit about engineering as well. So we've said we've talked about the T levels in construction and design. We've talked about the BTEC in IT, but we offer BTEC in engineering as well, and that comes in different sizes as well, doesn't it, Peter?
Yes, we do have the 1A level equivalent engineering, and also we do have the 2A level equivalent. So that means you'll have 3 units in 1 year if you're taking the 1A level, and 6 units if you're taking the 2A levels. And the progression route is you can work as get an apprenticeship after this in engineering, or you can go for a university for a full degree.
Thank you very much. Oh, and there's a question about how long is each of the 6 weekly lessons for the engineering level 3 vocational? I'm just trying to interpret that question. So the lessons that we have at college are all 1.5 hours long. And if you are doing a course which is either an A-level or one of the BTECs or one of our vocational courses which is equivalent to 1 A-level, you would have 3 of those lessons in a week. So that would be 4.5 hours per week per subject. But in the case of construction, for example, the T-level in construction, then that happens like that, but much more of it. So there are actually 12 lessons per week in construction. In IT, the choices are between doing either a 2A level equivalent or a 3A level equivalent. So there'd be either 6 lessons per week or 9 lessons per week, but they would all be 1.5 hours. And in engineering, again, the lessons are 1.5 hours, but they're either 1A level equivalent or 2A level equivalent. So that would be either 3 lessons per week or 6 lessons per week. So it's very complicated. It depends which subjects you want to do, but think of them all as being equivalent to 1A level or multiples of that. So construction and a BTECs can be equivalent to 3A levels. Of course, if you do small BTECs, you could combine them with other BTECs or A-level programs, or if you take a large BTECs or the construction or digital T-level, then that would be the whole thing that you do. Now, a reference to T-level construction. Chris, you might help us with this, or it might be one that's a bit tricky considering you're new. Who finds the industry placement? Is it up to the student, or do we find the placement for the students?
Well, I am quite new, but I have been in touch with an awful lot of members of very helpful staff in the last week or so. And there is a nice lady called Emma, I believe, who is very active in finding work placements for apprentices. And I've been talking to her recently, and she's going to help me not only with the work placements for the students, to find those work placements, but also to organise visits for the whole class. So, you know, if we want to go and see a construction company in action in Bristol or something, she's going to help me contact those employers and those companies and so on. So, in answer to your quick answer to your question, it's not necessarily up to you, but if you know of a company that would be really good and you have contacts there, there's absolutely no reason why. If you work through the college systems, we couldn't get you connected into that company. It's quite a flexible setup, I believe. So yeah, that would be great if you can.
And employers are really keen to talk to us about students going to do placements. So I think Chris is right. The more, if you've got contacts or there's a company who operate near you. Because sometimes transport is a bit tricky until people have passed their driving test, or maybe students that haven't got mobility with their own car. If you know of a company near you, then that can often solve that problem. Now, let's go back to the BTECs in IT and engineering. Peter, you mentioned about the units, and Simon, you've talked a little bit about the different size of the qualifications. Each unit is either internally assessed or externally assessed, isn't it? Simon, can you tell us a little bit about the potential assessments that students are going to come across in IT?
Yeah, I mean, the new BTEC's brand new and up to date. So the specification for IT is really up to date with the latest technology. The Unit 1, which all students start with.
We're just frozen a little bit there. Are you back online there, Simon?
Can you hear me now?
We can hear you now. Yeah, if that happens, Peter, if you're still live and Simon freezes, maybe you could pick up where Simon leaves off in terms of the assessment in engineering. Simon, carry on. Sorry to interrupt.
Sorry. So Unit 1's a unit all students study, which is on information technology systems, and that's an exam-based unit. So the students study a 2-hour exam at the end of the unit. And there's another unit, Unit 2, creating systems to manage information. So that's looking at databases and how data's sorted. And that's an externally set task, which is set by the exam board. Most of the other units are internally assessed by us, where students complete assignments and then we mark them and they're graded. So it's a nice mix, really. There's a bit of exam assessment in there and some internally assessed coursework as well. Some of the units students do include programming, so data modeling, website design, games design, computer animation, and project management as well. That's a really useful skill employers really like.
Thank you very much, Simon. And Peter, is it a similar sort of assessment model in engineering where you've got different units being assessed in different ways?
Yes, it's very similar to what Simon explained. We have got Unit 1, which has got an external exam. And then we have got the Unit 2, which is a internal assessment, but it is marked externally. And then we have a couple of units which is internally assessed. And also there is a unit which is work placement. So that means it's a part of the qualification. The students will go to a company and work for 3 weeks or something like that, and then complete the assessments.
That's really interesting, and it's very relevant because a student has just asked, when do they do that work placement, Peter?
This one will be starting as a second unit, so it will be starting anywhere from February till June.
In their first year of the course? In
the first year of the course.
Right, yes, yeah. So there's a whole unit on the industry placement, and then they'll go and do their work placement within that time frame.
Exactly, and this is not an optional choice for the students, it's a part of their qualification. So we will help you to find a work placement, or you can find one yourself.
Yeah. Thank you. Now, there's also been a question about, we're speaking quite a bit about work placements in all the subjects that we're talking about, and it's certainly a big part of the T levels and many of our BTECs as well. And the student has asked about transport to their work placements, which is always going to be a little bit tricky for us because our college is in the middle of the countryside, and a lot of companies operate in towns or in areas which are a bit more tricky to get to. So this student has asked, when visiting sites on T-level construction, is it up to the student to provide their own transport, or is there a college bus? So that one isn't necessarily about work placements and travel, but it's about visits to sites. Chris, what do you think about that?
Well, I just passed a whole fleet of minibuses out the door here, so I don't think we'll have any problem getting to sites with minibuses, that's for sure. As far as the actual work placements go, which is quite a long time, it's the equivalent of 2 months of time with an employer. With that, I believe they pay your travel expenses. So that's good. But as Liam just said just then, we are out in the sticks here. So you may need to think about which work placement you accept based on the kind of transport you have available or lifts you can get. I don't know, Liam will probably be able to answer this better than me, but I don't know whether the college has any plans to sort of bus students to work placements.
Well, it's a really interesting question, and I know we're thinking very hard about how we can make it work for the work placements in both the digital and the construction T levels. So I think it depends a lot on when the courses start and the companies who want to have students, where they are, and how we can facilitate that. But I think we'll make sure one way or another that students can get to their work placements. But I think it goes back to the question earlier on that if there are placements which students can suggest, which allow them to get the bus or to get a lift until they've passed their driving test and they're maybe a bit more mobile, then maybe that would be good. But you're right, you're correct, Chris. We have several minibuses. And many staff drive those minibuses and take students on trips to sites. So that won't be a problem for those times when you go for a day to visit a particular site. Now, we're actually running a little bit short of time now, folks. So we're going to have to call it a day to this particular question and answer session. But thank you very much for your questions. And I would encourage you to keep asking those questions. And if you run out of time on this particular in this forum, then please do email the college questions. The teachers you see in front of you and a whole bunch of other teachers who teach these subjects and other subjects are available, and we will get back to you if you want to ask questions, and you can give us a call or email us, and please do so. We would like you to know as much as possible about the courses you want to take. And of course, we'll be enrolling in the summertime, so you'll be able to come and speak to us one way or another. You'll be able to come and speak to us socially distanced in the future. So wonderful to chat to you. Thank you very much to our lecturers, and we'll catch up with you soon. Cheerio, folks. Hello, everybody, and welcome to Cirencester College. My name is Liam Nolan, and I'm the head of faculty for STEAM. That's Science, Technology, Engineering, Art, and Maths. Getting feedback. In this question and answer session, we're focusing on maths. So if you've got any questions you'd like to ask of our lecturers, our maths lecturers who are with us this evening, please do type your questions into the box that you can see at the bottom of the screen. And we've got 20 minutes to answer as many questions as we can in that time. So maybe to begin with, I'd just like to hand over to the maths lecturers who are with us and ask them to tell us who they are and what they teach. So we'll start with James.
Hello, I'm James Martin. I teach maths and further maths here. I'm also course leader for the maths and further maths programs.
Okay, hi, I'm Jonathan Tomlinson. I teach on the A-level and the GCSE maths courses. I'm the course leader for the GCSE course.
Fantastic, thank you very much. So maybe we'll just describe to begin with our different types of maths provision. So of course we offer GCSE and foundation and higher for students who want to retake their GCSE exam, or maybe you haven't taken a GCSE maths exam before and this is your first opportunity to do that. But a lot of what we're here to discuss tonight is about the level 3 courses, and they're the A levels and a qualification in core maths. So, James, can you tell us a little bit about the difference between the A level in maths, the further maths, and the core maths?
So the standard maths A level is the most popular A level in the entire country. It's not a specific maths A level. It's not just for maths degrees. It's designed to go with your computer science, your economics, any of your science subjects. It's designed to go along with those. Core maths is designed to go along with people who are doing biology and psychology and geography, those kind of things, where there are some heavy statistical elements, especially in the degree courses, but you probably don't need to do an entire A level in maths. Your further maths one is your specialist degree A level. So if you want to go and do a specialist degree in things like computer science, engineering, physics or maths, then it might be worth checking out further maths and doing 2 A levels, the standard everyone maths A level and the specialist one as well.
Fantastic, thank you very much. And how long would I spend in a week if I was doing A-level maths compared to further maths or core maths? Can you just tell us how many lessons I'd have in a week on those different courses? James, sorry. We've just frozen there. So oh, we're back. James, did you hear the question?
We're back, yeah. Yes, I did kind of. So A-level maths is 3 lessons a week. It's the same for all A-levels. That's 3 lessons of an hour and a half, plus a weekly homework, plus some other bits and pieces of learning. You're looking at probably 4.5 hours of lessons and 3 to 4 hours worth of homework. Core maths is only 2 lessons, so that's 2 lessons and 1 piece of homework. It's going to be about 4 hours total. And then your maths and further maths is 6 lessons of an hour and a half. That's 9 lessons. There will be at least one day where you have double maths, plus the homework. So that's it's half your timetable as maths.
And of course, you would put those, whether it's A-level maths or A-level maths with further maths or core maths, you would choose to do those alongside other A-levels like physics or biology, chemistry, or something that's non-sciencey as well. Do you have a lot of students who take subjects that aren't the science subjects along with maths, James?
Every year, even in further maths, there are a couple of people. We have a maths, further maths, physics, art this year, who wants to go into architecture. Last year, we had maths, further maths, English, literature, French, and she ended up with 2 A stars in maths and further maths. So it's obviously not a problem if you don't take other subjects heavily related.
Thank you very much. And Jonathan, you've taught A-level maths for a long time. Do a lot of students go off to study maths at the university after they've taken A-level maths at college, or A-level maths and further maths even?
Well, yeah, certainly the A-level maths and further maths students, quite a significant proportion of those go on to study maths at university, which would be why they've taken the further maths option in the first place. But it's important to note that there have also been many just A-level maths students that have also gone to do maths at university. So you don't have to do the further maths option in order to leave maths at university open as an option for you for yourself. But if you're looking at Oxford, Cambridge, maybe Warwick, for example, some of the more prestigious universities, especially as far as maths goes, then at this stage you'll be thinking I'm going to start on the further maths course anyway, and then you can decide after the first year whether you're definitely going to do the A-level in further maths, because the way we structure it, you've got you're going to accelerate through, so do the A-level maths content in year 1, do the A-level further maths content in year 2, and so at the end of year 1 you've kind of got a choice about exactly what elements of further maths you're gonna take on, if at all.
Okay, so there's always lots of questions from students in these kinds of events about how hard it is to do maths, and the step up from GCSE maths to A-level maths. What are your thoughts on that, Jonathan? How do we manage that with students? Because there is a big difference, isn't there?
Yeah, so there is a big step up, but not really necessarily in the topic that you'll see. So in the first few weeks of term, we'll be looking at things like quadratic simultaneous equations, surds and indices, sketching graphs, some straight line graphs and circles in there as well. So a lot of very familiar topic areas, but the standard of assessment tends to be more rigorous. The questions typically will draw in knowledge, or will assess your knowledge from various different aspects. So you might have a circles question, it will result in a quadratic equation, perhaps intersecting a line, so therefore you have to solve simultaneous with a quadratic and a linear equation, all under the guise of a circles question, for example. So that's where the added complexity comes in the first term. Until then we get on to things like differentiation, integration, so the newer topic areas within the A-level. And then in the spring term, we make more progress with things like exponentials and logarithms, which are genuinely sort of new topic areas. So yeah, the key really in the first few weeks is to make sure that your algebra skills are really, really slick and fluent and accurate. And and so you don't make careless mistakes, and you can quickly and confidently solve many of the different types of equations you've done at GCSE.
Thank you very much, Jonathan. James, there's a question come up. It says, what grade do I need to get to do A-level maths?
So A-level maths, we're really looking at people with 7s. If you do end up with a 6, if it's a nice high 6 and you still want to think about the course, we can discuss it at enrolment. But really, we're looking at 7s to make sure that you know enough of the GCSE course that we're not building on shaky foundations. In the first couple of weeks, we do go through all the GCSE algebra again, because it's absolutely required knowledge for the A-level. It's not like you can get away without knowing the GCSE basics for the course. So a 7, if we get a 6, then we can discuss an interview and try the enrolment interviews and try and sort out a plan for you.
Of course, students are in a difficult position at the moment, aren't they? They haven't had their normal end of the year. They haven't had exams, and so they're waiting for results, not really knowing how well they've managed to do. So best of luck to everybody. But if you've got any questions and you're not sure about progression to different courses in college, whether it's maths or anything else, drop us a line, drop us an email, and we'll chat to you about what's possible. Right, so once we're at college, James, and we're on the course, how does the homework work in maths, and how much do people have to do in terms of homework, and how does that all go?
So there is a substantial amount of work to be done outside of lessons. So maths is a doing subject rather than like a learning subject. There's an awful lot of new techniques you'll be introduced to, quite a few new methods that you have to learn and you have to practice. Our homeworks is a weekly homework. It'll take you somewhere between an hour and an a half, maybe 2 hours to do the weekly piece of homework, depending on how good you are at a topic. You might be absolutely incredible at a topic and breeze through it, and it might only take you an hour. You might have to get your notes out and have a look. For all of our homeworks, they're supplied with solutions and also a video that explains how to do the topics and the questions and how to approach the questions. So the idea isn't you go away and go home and see if you can do the homework or not, or see how much you can do it. The idea is you use the support that's there, and it's a case of how much support do I still need to use to work on these questions. Because we've got to get you doing it, we've got to get you completing questions and following methods and making sure that you can complete them accurately.
Fantastic, thank you very much. Another question's come in, Jonathan. Are there any costs associated with maths?
So yes, in the sense that there is a calculator which is called the FX991EX, or the Class Whiz Casio calculator. It's around about £25 on Amazon and everywhere else, really. The college shop can sell it, but you can, but it's not any particular discounted price, to be honest. So you're as well to just get one over the summer holidays. And the details are on the website of exactly what that calculator is. So that's really important. Alongside that, there are textbooks, which in a world where we are less able to share resources in a classroom due to the virus, then you would be advised to try and get your textbooks perhaps yourselves. So they will come in at around about £25 to £30 a year for those as well.
Okay, thank you very much. As part of that question, I think you've answered most of it, but they've extended the question to say, what about trips? Are there any trips that would cost some money?
Well, under normal situations, again, if we're allowed to and so on, we usually go to Warwick University for a trip. That's optional, so they don't have to. But then the cost of that is, again, around about £25 to £30. That covers the cost of the ticket and the transport, of course. So that's where we see inspirational talks where maths, explaining how maths is used in things like analysing the spread of diseases, for example, very topically at the moment. So, in fact, I've been to talks on that before. 2 years ago when it wasn't quite so relevant, but it turns out it was very relevant, and also things like the analysis of the 2008 crash from a mathematical point of view. So that's one trip we do, but it is optional, and similarly there are other ones to Royal Holloway University in London again, which would be optional.
Okay, thank you. So I think all these costs put together over the course of 2 years don't amount to a huge amount, but there are possibly some £20 for a calculator or a textbook, which would be useful, and trips you can opt into every now and again. There's a few more questions coming in. Some of them are about timetabling. James, the first one is about a student who's applied to do further maths as well as maths, music tech, and physics. Now, you might know enough about how they work on the timetable to suggest if that's possible, but the student has also said that they might want to change just to A-level maths instead of further maths. And so how would they do that?
A-level maths will always work because there's A-level maths in every single column. There's physics in at least 3 or 4 columns. I don't know how many music tech groups there are. So the real question is music tech, is it going to fit with everything else?
Yeah.
As for changing for normal maths, if you want to give further maths a go, you can always change to normal maths during the first couple of weeks. Otherwise, maths will always fit on everyone's timetable because, it's in every single column. Yeah.
Yes, and Mick's agreeing with me. I think we're all agreeing that that combination of further maths, music tech, and physics, I'm 99% sure that would be doable. But the question really is, if you want to carry on with further maths, then that's something we can facilitate. It's a question of whether that's right for you. So like James said, you can come along and give it a go. But if you really want to change it now, and you're thinking further maths isn't for me, then just drop us an email, and we can pick that conversation up with you and just check before we make any changes. We would just check that was the right thing to do with you, with it on a phone call or by an email conversation. But yes, it can be changed at any point. In fact, whatever you've applied to do, that isn't locked down in stone. At enrolment, we'll have more conversations about the subjects you've applied to do and check that you still want to do those subjects. There's another question about how many hours a week in total. That includes teaching time and homework. Would you estimate a student would need to put in if they were studying maths, further maths, and 2 other subjects? Jonathan, what do you think?
9 hours a week for maths lessons, as James outlined earlier. 9 hours a week for the other 2 courses as well. So 18 hours a week of lessons there. And then on top of that, the usual A-level guidance is that you study as much outside of class as you do in class. Though admittedly, maths and further maths is perhaps a relatively efficient way of doing 4 subjects. So you're probably looking at around about 30-ish hours of classwork and homework combined for your 4 A-levels then, and the homework side of it.
Yeah, of course, students have quite a significant amount of time between lessons when they're not in class. Maybe not quite as much if you're doing maths and further maths with 2 other subjects, but still some time where you can start to do some of your work that you've been set as homework.
That's right. There'd still be 9 hours a week, wouldn't there? Be when other students would be having lessons, but you're not, but you're still on site. So typically, if you were getting the bus in for 9 o'clock and then get the bus home at 4 o'clock, and you were doing 4 A-levels, then you would still have at least 9 hours a week of normal sort of lesson time when you yourself were not in lessons, when you could be doing homework in the library or the study centres around the college. So, if you're organised and use your time sensibly, then you can get a lot done in college and minimise the amount of time that you're going to have to spend at home on your homework.
Fantastic.
I actually have 3 students in my further maths group who have a free straight after my Friday lesson when the homework gets set, and they just go and do the homework.
So they have a free weekend then, James?
Yeah, well, they're free for an hour and a half after my lesson, so they just go and get it done.
Yeah, there's something to be said for organising your time very efficiently, isn't there, in those free periods? And students, we generally find that students who organise themselves really, really well and they get their work done as soon as it's set, they benefit from that. Would you say, James?
Yes, especially if you can do homework with other people and get help and guidance from other people. It means you don't even have to rely on things like the videos that are there.
Do you find that in maths a lot of students do work in small, either in pairs or in small groups when they're not in lessons?
Some do, some don't. Some prefer to do maths all by themselves. Some will prefer to sit in a room where you can have a go at it yourself, and if you get stuck, ask for help. But then during lunchtimes, I'm usually in my classroom People will drop in and ask for help at lunchtime, just on a random maths question sometimes.
It's worth noting that we do have a little sort of study room on the maths corridor, which some students do get into the habit of going to, at lunchtimes with another maths student to help with their homework. And that's a nice little facility for maths students particularly. There's this nice little study room. So they're not competing for space in the library and so on.
Yeah. And then every now and again, James, I presume you monitor progress with that terrible T word, the tests.
Everyone loves maths tests.
Everybody loves maths tests. How often do you have maths tests, and how does it all work?
There are maths tests for groups of groups of topics. So there'll be a test immediately on GCSE, because we need to make sure that if there are any little problems with GCSE, we can iron those out nice and quickly. The next test, I think Jonathan mentioned some of the topics earlier, is on things like quadratics and surds and inequalities and completing the square, a bit of curve sketching, some graph transformations. So that is on probably 3.5 weeks worth of work. So that is work that you then have to do some revision. On our Moodle page, it's our online learning page, you can find a practice version of the test, which has some similar questions on. So you can have a go at that, see if there's anything you want to work on, see if there are any problems you might have. You've then got opportunities to ask friends, you can ask teachers, you can go back and redo homeworks on particular topics before you sit the test. The idea is the test isn't this great surprise where you go, oh, I wasn't expecting any of this stuff to be on the test. Test is supposed to be, how are you getting on? What do we still need to work on? How can we help you get to where you need to be?
Fantastic, thank you very much. So we're running out of time. We've got literally 1 minute left. If anyone's got any questions, feel free to write them in the box, and we'll float them to James and Jonathan. But otherwise, Jonathan, let's just finish off by thinking about what is it the students most enjoy about studying maths at Cirencester College, would you say?
Well, they typically really enjoy doing the maths in the classroom with their peers. It's a very much a doing subject. So there's a little bit of explanation, of course, of the new topic, but then much of the lesson is spent solving problems, and that's really engaging, naturally really engaging in itself. So I think students really get a boost from that, and the pure maths in particular, the algebra stuff, which permeates through the course, and students typically really enjoy.
Excellent, thank you very much. Well, we're just about out of time, folks, but we'd encourage you to send any questions you've got in the future, email us or give us a call. Lecturers are around. Well, fortunately, the summer holidays around the corner, so best wishes to all the GCSE students who are waiting for results. And if anybody else is looking to come to the college in the future and wants to know more about maths, we'll have more open events of some sort in October and in the near future. So do come and chat to us or drop us a line in the meantime to find out any more. So we'll say thank you very much to Jonathan and James for joining us in this chat, and feel free to drop them a line if you want to know any more questions. Bye bye, see you later. Good evening, everybody. Welcome to Cirencester College. My name is Liam Nolan, and I'm the head of faculty for STEAM, Science, Technology, Engineering, Arts and Mathematics. In this session, we'll be answering your questions on the arts subjects that are part of the faculty, and they are CTEC Art and Design, A-Level Textiles, and A-Level 3D Design, and also A-Level Fine Art, although we don't have the lecturer who teaches that here tonight. She couldn't be with us, but we will still answer your questions on A-Level Fine Art. So if you've got anything you would like to ask us at all on any of those subjects, then please type your question into the box at the bottom of the screen, and we'll answer as many of those questions as we can in the next 20 minutes. So just to get us started, I'm going to ask the lecturers who are here with us to introduce themselves just by telling us their name and the subject that they teach. Let's start with Ken.
Hi, I'm Ken Jones. I teach the 3D design here, so I'll come back to you later.
Thank you very much, Ken. And Daisy?
Hi, I'm Daisy Robert, and I am the textiles lecturer.
Thank you. And Peter?
I'm Peter Evans, and I teach the vocational art and design course.
Fantastic. Thank you very much. So, and we also, we haven't got a representative here tonight for the teacher of fine art, but that will be Hannah Davis, and she's back in college in September. But we will answer questions on her behalf this evening. So please fire away, folks. If you've got questions about studying these art subjects at college, then do ask us about those by typing your questions in the box. But I'm just going to start by asking the lecturers a little bit about the subjects that they teach and how they work with either standalone subjects or with other subjects. Peter, can you tell us a little bit about the CTEC in art and design, and how much time does a student spend on their timetable? How much time do they spend studying the vocational course that you teach?
Well, on the diploma, it's 9 hours a week, but obviously that's doubled for homework and independent work. And that's largely done within the studio. And some students find it easier whilst they're in college to utilize the studio for that. And I suppose I'd better mention that that is 2/3 of your timetable. So a third of it needs to be found elsewhere, whether A-level or some CTEC, BTEC, 60 credits subject.
Thank you very much, Peter. So it's a vocational course, and the assessment is slightly different to other courses, and maybe we'll come back to that in a moment. But the CTEC in art and design is equivalent to 2 A-levels, so you would do another subject alongside. Ken, we've got a question that's come in from someone in the big wide world, and they said, from your experience, what have people who have completed the 3D design course gone on to do in the future as a career?
Okay, that's an excellent question. Well, the biggest sort of single thing that students want to go on to as they join the course is architecture. Though, having said that, we've sent students to absolutely all kinds of courses. Transport design has been one of them. I've sent people to do jewellery design. They also do like interior design, design for sets and for stage and for TV. So we've got students out there who've done the course who are in all kinds of creative industries. So it's very, very broad based course. So if you've got a particular niche that you particular fancy being in, whether that's like jewelry design or car design or technological end of things, you'll find a way into it with 3D design as the basis.
Thank you very much. Daisy, I'm going to ask you a question that's come in. It could be for anyone to answer, but I'm going to ask you, Daisy. What's the difference between studying 3 creative A-levels compared with a CTEC?
So I think with 3 creative A-levels, because we're all under the same specification, we all have deadlines that are very similar, but you have to have your work completely separate for all of those subjects. So in that way that they are treated as standalone subjects, whereas with CTEC, as Peter will probably explain in a minute, it's more of a kind of holistic approach, and that is sometimes the projects kind of interlink and weave with each other.
Yeah, so in actual fact, doing 3 creative subjects would be we don't advise it normally, do we? Because there's so many hard deadlines to meet and so much so much work involved in those creative subjects. So we generally advise the students just do 2 of those creative subjects at one time, don't we? Maybe Ken, can you elaborate on that?
That's our experience. We do that. There are some odd cases each year, and people who have done the 3 creative subjects. We do get them. They're very rare circumstances, and it takes a lot of debate to work out whether that really is the best program for them. So yeah, normally we would advocate two creative subjects from the A levels. This year's model is slightly different. So it would be perfectly possible to pick up the C-Tech and have that kind of broad base of art and design. But if you want to create, if you specifically want to do textiles, say you wanted to go into a sort of costume for theatre, for example, you might want a broad-based kind of creative art and design course, but you might want the textile skills in there as well. So it would be possible to pick up the C-Tech and one other A level. That could work very well for you. Most students probably choose 1 creative and 2 academic-ish A levels, or 2 creatives and 1 academic, or be it a B-Tech or a C-Tech or whatever. But yeah, usually three is a slightly unusual program because they are essentially the same course.
Thanks very much, Ken. Peter, so your course has come up in both those answers, but what's your take on why would a student choose to do the C-Tech vocational course, which is equivalent to 2 A levels, rather than choosing to do 2 creative A levels and something else?
I guess it's more work orientated in terms of there's something artificial about A-level exams, whereas being graded after doing a project, and it's pretty straight after. So you're doing the practical work, and then you're getting feedback, and then you're getting assessment pretty much straight after. So it's a more natural occurrence, I think. And I suppose it depends upon the student whether they like the A-level framework, which I guess is a bit like GCSE, but bigger. Whereas I guess C-Tech, B-Tech, national diplomas, that kind of thing, is more like foundation. It's more like a more FE, more like perhaps a degree in terms of how work is perhaps studied and developed.
Thank you very much. Daisy, there's a question about numbers of students on courses. So again, this could be for any of the courses, but in textiles, for example, how many students take textiles, and well, that also by default answers the second question, which is how many students are there in each class? So that might be different for different subjects, but in your experience, Daisy, what's your answer to that?
So again, it depends on how many people we have apply for the course. I would say normally the average number for textiles, because of the room size and needing the space, is probably maximum 22, 23 students. But saying that, this year, my first year, says only 13 of them. So it does depend on how many students apply. But there's always enough room to make sure that you've got your own kind of space to get your sketchbook out, and there's always, and we make sure that there's not so many students that you can't have access to the kind of equipment and things.
Fantastic, that's great. And Peter, how many students do you have in the room this year on the C-Tech Art and Design?
It's very small at the moment. It's roughly about 11. But that's kind of great in a way, because it does allow each year group to work in the room when the other year group's there. So they learn from each other, they feel comfortable in the room. And although the room's not huge, it's sort of like allows for them to do their work to a high standard. So it's and we do certain things that you just wouldn't want to do at home. You know, it just makes too much mess.
Thank you very much. So there's another student now asking about workload, I think, and in particular, we were talking about the advice about 3 creative A levels. This one is just about 2 creative A levels. And Ken, this is maybe one that you could have a bash at. Is it too much to take a fine art A level as well as a 3D design A level? And how much do they overlap? And then a comment about how much work that would entail maybe outside of the lesson side.
Okay, yeah. So doing fine art and 3D, or any combination, whether it's textiles, 3D, textiles, fine art, that generally works very well. All the creative subjects overlap in terms of the fact that you need similar research skills. That we do some observational drawing in all the creative subjects, and we rely on photography for sort of creative research, getting imagery from which we can work. So there's a lot of kind of underpinning skills that are similar. So if you do two, you get the kind of advice and guidance from two members of staff. And it shouldn't become too much of a burden at any point. The kind of standard college expectation is that each A-level type subject has 4.5 hours on the timetable. If you regularly put in that at home, you'll stay well on top of your coursework. The problems only tend to arise when things have slipped behind for whatever reason, and then suddenly there's 20 hours, there's 4 weeks to catch up, and suddenly it seems a massive problem. But if you stay on top of the work and you use your free periods or study periods wisely, and you get into the art room or the 3D room, they're always open to students to come in and do work. It's incredibly rare that we have to turn someone away because there isn't room. So if we can fit you in, then we can help you along with your coursework or your research or whatever it is you want to do. So yeah, two works very well because they support each other. But it never feels like you're doing the same subject twice. They're so different. You're studying such different people and you're working with such different materials. I don't think anyone ever feels like they're doing the same lesson twice.
Thank you very much, Ken. And Daisy, I'm thinking about that time that students spend outside of their classroom now. So you have your 3 lessons a week, and those lessons are an hour and a half each. But I think in textiles, the students maybe spend a bit more time between so they're in the unusual position, aren't they, having come from school, of having free time, and they come and do some work in your workshop in that free time.
Yeah, and it's quite a nice kind of area to be in, because again, that we get some first years, some second years, and sometimes there's both groups in their free time, and it's nice for them to be able to come in and independently work and use that workshop space. And again, it kind of builds like a nice community feel between the 2 years, because they might ask the second year, oh, what could I do for this? Or it's quite nice that they have that time to bounce off each other as well. But yeah, I'm always happy for students to come in and use the workshop in their free time.
Thank you very much. Now, it leads me to think a little bit about assessments and the differences in assessments between the different courses. Peter, I think your course is completely internally assessed by portfolio and coursework, is it?
Yes. So that makes it nice and easy, really. And also, students, can see the criteria quite easily. They look at each other's work all the time. They peer group assess, and I think because it is quite a small group, but they see each other quite a lot of the time. There's quite a good group dynamics, and students bond quite well in the group, particularly this first year group through the period we're having at the moment, are fantastically committed. So yeah, it's interesting.
Thank you very much, Peter. Ken, there's a question that, in fact, probably 2 questions that have just popped up. The first one, what pottery and ceramics equipment is available at the college?
Okay, we've got a very popular technician, Brian Anderson, who's a very skilled sort of ceramic worker. So he's this year he's been offering some enrichment in ceramics. So we've got plenty of hand tools. We've got things like pug mills to prepare the clay. There's 1 or 2 there's one permanent fixed potter's wheels, and I think there's a portable one. We've obviously got a kiln. We can sort of extrude clay and we can fire it. So it's not a major thing, but a lot of schools have removed their ceramics stuff altogether. And we do a little bit of ceramics on the 3D course, and I know Pete does some as well. And we can do quite a lot of things with ceramics, and it's quite often an experience that students haven't had before. So it's a nice thing to get stuck into. If ceramics is an area of interest, I'd say there's quite a bit on Pete's course, a little bit on my course, and I would get into the enrichment, which is really popular. And Brian, as I say, is a bit of a ceramics whiz.
Thank you, Peter. Is there anything you want to add about the ceramics part of the CTEC?
It's just that students sometimes are a little bit doubtful at the beginning of using clay because their association with it at school isn't always very, it's more playful. They don't really sort of try to do anything that looks professional. So after doing some demonstrations, and it's sort of like 5-6 week project, they produce very good work, an incredibly skillful job that looks quite professional.
Thank you very much. There's a question we can probably answer really, really quickly. Ken, this is one that popped up before. How many lessons of 3D design would you have a week?
So all A levels have 3 lessons a week. They're 1.5 hour blocks, and they're spread through the week in different patterns depending on how your timetable works out.
Thank you very much. Daisy, this isn't aimed at textiles, but it's possibly aimed at fine art, and Peter might have something to say about it as well. But are students generally allowed to borrow equipment, paints, etc., to take out of the lessons to continue work at home?
I think it depends on what the equipment is, and obviously if we make sure we're signing things out so we know where things are. But I know for textiles, I'm happy for them to borrow things like paints and things like that, and I'm pretty sure Hannah's the same. As long as we've got a record of where things are going, and when they're returned, we can tick them off.
Because students do quite a lot of creative work outside of lesson times, and a lot of that would be, especially even now in lockdown, a lot of students are doing a lot of work at home, aren't they, Daisy?
Yeah, so yeah, I've let people borrow looms, so people have been doing weaving, and they've been taking felt making stuff home as well. So yeah, it's really good that they can do that at home when we let them borrow some of the equipment. Do you find that happens in the CTEC as well, Peter? Students taking stuff home to work?
Yes, they were doing a portrait project whilst the lockdown was on, so table easels were needed, palettes, oil paint they had to order themselves because obviously that sort of got used up over the holiday. But generally they have an art pack at the beginning of the term, so that allows us to give them certain things to use, but the more independent students are with their materials and that, the better. They'll respect them more. But, one-off items that are too expensive or used only a little bit, then we do them.
Yeah, so we've mentioned, students have an art pack, and you've mentioned about the materials that students use and expense. Ken, can you comment on, in general, how does it cost anything for students to take one of these subjects?
Yeah, I think there is a cost involved. Certainly in 3D, costs can vary enormously, and we've had some excellent projects that have been done. If money is an issue, you can define your project and say, well, I want to make it out of recycled materials, and you can make your project for £5 just for some adhesives or finishing things or whatever. You can do it really, really economically in terms of what you make. Equally, you can spend an awful lot of money and make something terrible. You can't buy a grade by what materials you have. But I think what you can do is, if you invest in yourself, you can inspire your own creativity, whether you invest in paints or pencils or software or whatever it is. If you've committed to buying something, whether it's a nice camera or whatever it is that you think is going to help your creative work along, if you've put a bit of money into it and a bit of thought into what you want and how you want to be creative, you tend to want to use it. There's always something exciting. Still, I can open a new pack of something or a new tool, and it's a new toy, and you can enjoy using that, and that kind of inspires and moves your work along. And hopefully you never run out of that sort of feeling. So yeah, it's worth getting basic stuff for yourself, so you're not kind of borrowing the obvious simple things. But if you want to try something out that you think that's quite expensive, we'll try and give you a go, or there will be an enrichment program or something. You say, yeah, well, I'll try that out before I buy something expensive. So I think that's where we try and help students out most. But some things are difficult to lend. We can't really lend a woodwork lathe.
That's right. Yeah. Thank you very much for that, Ken. Well, we're almost out of time. We've maybe got 1 minute left. So if anyone's got a question they want to ask, type it really quickly. But maybe we'll finish. Peter, can you? I know that some of your students display work in local cafes and that kind of thing, and that really helps them understand how exhibitions work as well. Do you manage to get students' work displayed in the big wide world?
Yes, we do. In Ellsworth, we had a print exhibition in Hobbs Bakery. One student sold £100 worth of prints this year. So cafes, pubs, I think it's going to be very difficult this year because of what's been happening. But we have Quennington sculpture fair, so that's going to be our big one this year for second years.
Thank you very much.
There's the 30th anniversary of the college, which might also come in handy as well.
Of course. Yeah. A couple of questions just come in right at the end. I can probably deal with one of them really quickly. Someone has said, can you do CTEC along with psychology with graphic communication? Well, that would be a 4 A-level equivalent program. Certainly the CTEC can go alongside psychology. For sure, and it can go alongside. Well, I think it can go alongside graphic communication as well. I think if you were talking about putting all those together, that would be a huge program. So we'd maybe talk a bit more about that. But in technically speaking, yes, those courses can go together. It's whether they would be advisable to go together as a very big program.
I think dependent upon the student's ability, where they are, and their level of commitment. I think is the answer to that.
And there's another question that's come up about the summer brief pre-work for the courses. Now, this might be to do with what we're calling Flying Start this year. So we've asked all students to do a task before they start their courses with us in September. We've also put up some material that the students might want to have a go at just to prepare themselves really, really well, although that doesn't have to be done. Daisy, can you just tell us just in 30 seconds a little bit about what you've asked students to do?
So for the pre-work summer activities, so this is the stuff that is optional. I've asked my students to watch some really interesting TV series such as Next in Fashion on Netflix, or Sewing Bee, which the final was on this week, and also watching a couple of videos on YouTube with Alexa Chung, where she talks about the fashion industry, and also about trying to upcycle some of your own garments, and just a couple of practical activities to keep people creative over the summer. Really, it's just to kind of extend and develop their knowledge in textiles so that they're ready for when we start back up again.
Fantastic. Well, I'm afraid to say we've run out of time, folks, but do keep in touch with us. If you've got any questions at all, email us just to the college reception, the admin area, what we call Student Journey, and they will get in touch with the lecturers who you're talking to now, and we will get back to you. So really good to see you. Thank you very much to the lecturers for coming along and answering questions, and we're going to say cheerio. So I hope to see you after the summer, or one of our open days if you're coming in following years. We'll say cheerio for now. Bye-bye, folks.